For everyone who is new to us, we are a non-profit organization dedicated to promoting effective evidence-based negotiation and conflict management training and education opportunities in the form of live in-person workshops, seminars, and also virtual talks like this one. That brings me already to our today's speaker, and it's my particular pleasure to introduce Ulkar Garajali to you. Ulkar Garajali is a pre-doc assistant at the University of Vienna and a PhD candidate in business decisions and analytics. Her research examines how communication shapes bargaining effectiveness in electronic negotiations, combining behavioral experiments with text-based process coding to link verbal tactics to payoffs, concessions, and socio-emotional outcomes of negotiation. Previously, Ulkar worked in analytics and market research roles at companies such as Procter & Gamble and McCann Erickson and holds an MBA degree from Kyoto University. She now teaches human resource management, data analysis courses at the University of Vienna. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Ulkar Garajali. Ulkar, the stage is yours.
Hello, Felix, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm very flattered by the interest from everyone who has joined us today. And I want to again thank Austrian Association of Negotiation and Conflict Management. I've met you when you were operating under a different name years ago, and it's great to reunite with you again, especially Felix, in this new platform. So yes, my name is Ulkar, and I am right now already a fifth-year student, PhD student, actually candidate at this point at the University of Vienna, and I am doing my PhD at Business Decisions and Analytics Department. And my topic is negotiation, especially negotiation behavior, and how it can be regulated, managed through different styles of communication, and specifically in online electronic environments. So my study I conduct with Dr. Michele Grice-Mayer. We co-authored these papers, about which I will also shortly talk about during today's presentation. But I will be referring to vast amount of literature that has come before me. So let's start then. I will start sharing. Yes. So I will talk about negotiations. I will try to talk about negotiations beyond this traditional view or the discourse around this topic. Usually we see negotiations being talked about in the light of how to win, how to get the most benefit or the most economic benefit out of this negotiations, out of this act. But we'll try to look at it from this beyond economic win and lose point of view, and maybe also try and focus around the socio-emotional outcomes of negotiations. Now, let's start with stating a clear fact that negotiations are really all around us. Every object that we touch is a result of a long chain of negotiations between partners, business entities. And we, with ourselves, in this philosophical sense of the word, start the day with negotiating. We negotiate when we get up, whether, with ourselves, whether we want to go for coffee or go and have a healthy option, drink a green juice, for instance. And we go on negotiating with our partners, with our kids. We go to office, we negotiate about the workspace with our colleagues. So it's really all around us, however much we want to avoid it or not. And more and more of these negotiations are happening either out of necessity or by choice in online format. Right? Only 3-4 years ago, we couldn't even negotiate face-to-face, even if we wanted to, because of global pandemic. Now, with the recession, imminent recession and economic crisis, we, in businesses, we are encouraged to avoid travel or committing travel costs and do more of these negotiations and again in online format. Especially in fields like procurement and supply chain, where the whole job revolves around multiple negotiations during a day, it might not even be practical to really travel to negotiation venues and outside of office locations to conduct every single negotiation act. So today we have access to tools like SAP Ariba, Ariba contract management tool that was purchased by SAP in 2016, that streamlines this process greatly. So online negotiation is not just sort of future that awaits us, but it's the reality since a while ago. We see procurement professionals um, exchanging proposals, engaging in negotiations in online formats already, where they don't have much chance even for video calls, but mostly on text messages. But overall, when we talk about online or electronic negotiations, I will be trying cover not just let's say environments where sides can exchange messages only, but also different means of medias where they can also communicate through video, let's say. So before we start, let's agree on what we mean when we say negotiation, right? Negotiation in its own self is really a decision-making process. Whether it's done, alone, one side of you really wants to feel that fresh smell of brew of coffee. Another side is really concerned about, gut health and wants to urge you to drink green juice, let's say, in breakfast. We agree that it is a decision-making process between two parties, two entities that are not quite agreeing on the course of action. And the only thing maybe these two sides are agreeing on is that they are better off if they reach an agreement versus the status quo, versus the state they're in. You know that you want to drink something, eat something, right? And you have to agree on what that thing will be. You definitely don't want to stay where you exactly are at the given point at the beginning of the negotiation. And different things are expected. Different people have can have different values that they expect or seek as a result of a negotiation. To simplify this, we classify things that one can expect to get out of negotiations into four different groups. Let's say instrumental group will contain economic outcomes, right? Materialistic, let's say, gains out of negotiation, contract terms, or if it's a pricing issue, uh, as a buyer who will get the lowest price, so on and so forth. You can have self-serving, self-related values that you might be seeking. That could be you might be seeking to save your face, to enforce personal standards that you bring with yourself to a negotiation table, or you can be seeking procedural, let's say, outputs. You don't just care about what you get, but you also care about how you get it. You want to enforce fairness in processes. You want to acknowledge that your voice is being heard. And last but not least, relationship gains, right? You could be coming to discussions, coming to negotiations with an aim of building trust between you and your counterpart, with a desire to, pave the ground for future collaborations with them. To further simplify this classification, let's again group the materialistic, the instrumental outputs one might seek out of negotiations as economic, and the rest of them as socio-emotional. Now, one thing that's constant in the realm of negotiations is the negotiator's dilemma. As we said earlier, negotiators acknowledge that the reason why they're negotiating in the first place is because they have disagreement. They have different priorities, and these priorities are most likely incompatible with each other. Because if they were, there would be no need for negotiation. and they know that they are better off if they come into some kind of agreement with their counterpart. So here comes the dilemma. Do I focus on maximizing my deal, my value out of this negotiation? Do I focus only on my priorities? Or do I invest and equally care about preserving the relationship, hence the socio-emotional outcomes? So this dilemma between reaching mutual acceptable solution and ensuring a deal that is mostly largely good for oneself is an age-long dilemma that negotiators are struggling with. And this is not just the case for practitioners, practitioner negotiators. Research also has its own, let's say, struggles with answering this question: which way to go, which way is better way. And we see two large studies which have meta-analysis, which have studied group of the papers that are trying to find answer to this question. One group of researchers, they claim they support this gradual reduction in tension theory, where it's believed that if the sides start with a reasonable offer and throughout the negotiation progress with meaningful and frequent concessions, the exchange of this sort of meaningful and frequent concessions, this tension that they bring to table can succeed, and they can end up with a deal that is good for both of them. On the other hand, the hardline bargaining researchers, or let's say promoters, they claim that the level of aspiration that you start the negotiation with is a direct predictor of what place, what value utility you'll be gaining at the end of the negotiation. So all of the studies, sort of this meta-analysis that I'm referring to by Allen and Hofmeyr, they come into agreement that yes, if you want to maximize your own outcome, choose hardline bargaining. That will be the most beneficial way for you. But they also suggest that we should be taking this suggestion, this, let's say, recommendation, which is still not absolute. There are still papers who also support choosing softline bargaining way, but majority of them are supporting hardline bargaining. But still, this outcome should be taken with a grain of salt. Number one reason is, while pushing, insisting our priorities onto our counterpart, we are absolutely running the risk of jeopardizing socio-emotional outcomes, even the whole negotiation. The harder you pass, the harder you sort of insist on your position, the likelier it is that your counterpart may just disagree with the whole discussion and leave the negotiation table. The table that you in the first place came because you're seeking agreement. And by pressing too hard on your priorities, you are jeopardizing the whole agreement. And a lot of people who have dealt with hardline negotiators maybe are not so willing to come back around the same table with them again. So it also sacrifices the reputation, the future business deals with this same person that you have exposed to your hardline or distributive behaviors. Another point here is that a lot of the studies don't really consider communication factor. Now, whether we want it or not, whether we use words or not, our actions build certain type of perception about us. If we concede a lot, it is possible that we're, unwantingly communicating to the other side that we are maybe weak, maybe a pushover. But that depends on the perception of the counterpart, right? So this factor, this perception creation process is not really controlled in none of the studies. And we could agree that communication is a great way of managing the perception. By communicating our intentions, our motivations behind what we're doing, we are controlling how the other side really sees us. So here comes the question. Could communication be the key to the inconsistent advice that we receive from the literature, from the practitioners in terms of how negotiators should behave? Now, when we look into literature as in research academic manner, when you have a question, you first go into literature to see maybe someone else asked the same question and maybe the answer is already there. And we did the same. We see that negotiation is so intertwined with communication that it is actually almost a type of communication. Obviously, it differs from the related types of communication. As we said earlier, it centers around the perceived incompatibilities of the parts of this act of communication. It also employs strategies, tactics that aim at reaching mutually acceptable agreement between the sides. And we see that micro elements, whether they are verbal or nonverbal, even the means of media that we use to communicate, they often alter the course of negotiation. Now, it would be very naive of us to assume that negotiations start from diverging interests and with consistent, meaningful, always sort of beneficial, fruitful concessions will reach to the holy grail of agreement that everybody agrees and loves. Negotiation actually consists of different phases. It's not always a straight line process. It goes up and down, right? And we see that negotiators throughout the course of negotiation, all these ups and downs, they adapt to different phases of it. And we see the general behavior to be historically to be that sides will start distributively, start with from a competitive place because they come with a perception that they have major differences with this person that they are meeting. And they slowly, as they learn more about each other and the closer they get to potential agreement, they switch into more integrative behavior. We also see that the first 5 minutes of negotiation is very decisive. We see that how engaged the person is in conversation, even the different emphasis, vocal emphasis they put in different phrases and sentences, and their language, how they mirror each other's language and speech. These type of things are responsible for 30% of variance in negotiation outcome. So it predicts 30% of the negotiation outcome. Now you might ask, where does the other 70% come? Obviously, the negotiation does not end after 5 minutes. The rest of the conversation or the existing partners of the participants, these are things that inadvertently affect the outcome. And we see that the negotiators who talk more, speak fast, pause less, who overall are more poised and have better public speaking skills, they achieve better deals economically. We also see that linguistic patterns in negotiations have predictive power. We see the choice of words from can to could make a big difference. In which phrases you start the sentence. Do you start the sentence with prepositions, with I, you, or you start the sentence with straight up with the subject of the sentence with price is not good for me, for instance. These things alter or even predict the outcomes of negotiations. And all these things obviously go out of the window when we talk about electronic negotiations because we see that we are lacking sort of this interpersonal cues, which are nonverbal communication that we, let's call them nonverbal communication, where we, if we're lacking even the video or voice option in our media, doesn't matter which type of emphasis we put in which word, right? And this missing interpersonal cues, they make online communication deteriorate more rapidly in negotiations. They lead to rapid deterioration of negotiations. We also see that sides are more inclined to attribute malicious intent to to their counterparts than the face-to-face negotiators do. We also see that e-negotiators are more suspicious of their counterparts, even without having a factual basis for it. So even though if the orders or the offers are equal or comparable, the interpretations of it still differ in an online format. Now, knowing all this, how can we translate all this information into practice of electronic negotiations? For it, let's start with picturing a real-life example, again, from procurement field. Let's imagine we are witnessing or we are part of a negotiation between a buyer and a supplier, where buyer, of course, they want to reach the lowest price possible for the item, for the utility they're negotiating over. And our supplier is more concerned about the volume commitment of the buyer. They want a plan for the production. They want to maintain profitability so that they can retain their existing employees. And they want to also avoid, hopefully, warehouse costs by having a lot of idle inventory laying around, right? They want better opportunity for planning. In traditional distributive approach, where our buyer could be someone who is, who insists on the price, who really wants to push their priority, which is price issue. And in this case, we would see a buyer who pushes hard on price, but then supplier cannot just sit idle. They would also resist on this issue, right? Probably with the hard line, this distributive negotiator, they are starting off from a point that is absolutely unacceptable for our supplier, and they would naturally resist on this price. And you might actually end up with this tug of war that actually jeopardizes the whole negotiation, the whole agreement, potential agreement. Thankfully, we have myriad of outcomes from research findings that suggest an alternative path if you don't want to go as hard and let's say push your priorities. Phil Moser with one of my professors, Professor Vetra, their joint paper, it suggests that there's a strong connection between the communication and the emotions that we evoke in our counterparts. And it is important to join this communication with the, let's say, it's not necessary to play the cards close to your chest, but also share meaningful information that may actually, at the end of the day, benefit your deal. We also see some modest relation between the communication and the substantive outcomes of negotiations. But it's important to know what to share and what not to share, right? It's beneficial, we see, to reveal what matters most to you and to also inquire what is most important, what is the priority of your counterpart. And if everything goes by the plan, let's say, you would identify some trade-off opportunities where value can be created through log rolling, this activities where you trade your lower priority item for a higher priority item of your counterpart. Now, in a real-life situation, in our buyer-supplier case study, we can maybe reframe it in the following way. Our buyer could open up with stating that they want to be honest and direct with their counterpart and communicate that their focus is to reduce costs in the next quarter by 12%, but they also prioritize their curiosity, their inquiry of their counterpart's priorities. And in an ideal case, your supplier would reciprocate this sentiment by, communicating back possibly that their Their main concern is really the fluctuation of the inventory, right? They have either excess capacity sitting idle and generating warehouse cost, or they are usually scrambling to meet the orders. It would be good for them to know how much they're supposed to produce in each given period. Now, as a result, we see there's an opportunity for a trade-off. We see that our buyer can actually push a little bit on lowering the price if they trade back a longer term contract for supply with this supplier. So here we see this differences in preferences, which can be traded and at the end of the day gain a bigger value than they thought they had at the beginning, right? Another strategy we can discuss is framing your offers against the bottom line of your counterpart. Now, this is where the research of your counterpart before coming to the negotiation table gains a new meaning, right? Knowing their current state, knowing their current struggles is important because you can use them as a chip, as a bargaining chip, quite literally. So we see that starting the conversation with asking, how does my offer compare to the highest price you can afford or the lowest price you can afford if we're talking about us being the buyer and our counterpart being the supplier? We see that this sort of framing already shifts the mental anchor of the counterpart from what they thought they ideally want to gain out of negotiation, but into their realistic constraints, into their realistic situation. We see that this approach usually causes less ambitious behavior from our counterparts, and they leave the table being more satisfied with the negotiation in general, which inadvertently translate into willingness to engage in future businesses with them. Now, in our case, we would start with trading, exchanging some information that we have about them. We can say that we are aware of your cost structure and production capacity. How does X amount per unit compare to the minimum price that you would still allow your balance sheets would allow while benefiting from production efficiency at a higher and more guaranteed volumes. And again, ideally, our supplier also has done some research on us, right? And they would also communicate that based on our budget planning that they're aware of and forecasting accuracy, they would also come up with a certain amount that they can provide quarterly. So this helps for both sides to really be more grounded in their offers, be more realistic in their offers, and they end up acting less aggressively towards each other and actually end up leaving the table more satisfied, as I said. Long-term perspective. This is almost this, when we talk about electronic negotiations, especially, we have to also take into account this human-computer interaction factor, where it's easy to forget that it's still a human being you are talking to, communicating to, and there's still an opportunity to benefit from this relationship in longer term. It's not just a one-time act, and considering the future deals that he can have with the business, with the executive, and remembering, keeping in mind that actions carry weight that travels, long distance in a form of reputation, and that the relation, the conversation, the quality of conversation you have with the person can also translate into future referrals, network opportunities, might help you to balance substantive interest with relational interests and focus more on mutual benefit principle that also is not much less important than the private, the personal gain from negotiations. So in terms of our case, again, real life situation, we can state that we are expecting to grow. Us as a buyer, we can hint that we're expecting to grow 30% annually over the next 3 years. And we are also looking for someone who will come with us on this scaling journey, and asking how they can adapt their production process to sort of make this relationship go in a long term. Excuse me. And maybe giving in with stating how their response will change if we commit on baseline volumes now, and we reconsider the pricing tiers, pricing issues in future again after this testing period of the relationship. And supplier can again, ideally respond in the similar sentiment with stating that they're also looking for someone who will ensure them this predictability of production volume. And they might suggest to offer competitive price in return of, considering that they will prove value for each other, and discuss the multi-year agreement and sort of revisit the pricings for the continuity of the contract in future. Now, value-based methods consider that it claims that sides should, despite the economic gains from the negotiation, they should decide that what the outcome of the negotiation is worth to invest this time, the energy that they're investing in these negotiations. And we see that appealing to counterparts' goodness by demonstrating goodwill and the fairness upfront sets the tone for the rest of the communication. Value-based methods even are inspired from this religious Christian Buddhist, let's say, sentiments in this way. They claim that when you demonstrate goodwill and fairness upfront, you create dynamic where the other party wants to reciprocate, right? It also relies on reciprocity theory. That you're claiming that you're not being just naive and soft, but you're being strategic about building a collaborative environment where both parties can succeed. Again, my collaborator, Dr. Greismeyer, has a great body of research about framing, which claims that it's not just enough to come with meaningful offers, but it's also important to frame those offers in a way that it still carries its meaningful weight. For instance, claiming that I'm offering 50,000 euros for X amount of inventory is not enough. It's also important to put some weight behind it, where we explain that I am trying to be fair. I'm trying to take into account your constraints and priorities. Therefore, I'm committing to certain concession. And again, ideally, your sentiment, your let's say goodwill, will be reciprocated. Research shows that it usually does. Now, I want to close this discussion around how being conceding, being full of goodwill, and framing your offers, suggestions in an empathetic way is actually a proved method to go around negotiations sometimes. I want to close up with Jacinda Ardern, post Prime Minister of New Zealand. I want to also pave the ground for why I chose Jacinda's quote here. During the majority of her term as a Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern was operating in a global pandemic situation where she did not have a choice but to conduct those negotiations online in an online format. And his success in how she sort of preserved the population of New Zealand from spread of the virus, and while maintaining, opinions might differ, but still maintaining economic viability of the country, speaks volumes of this quote that she once said. She claimed that one of the criticisms that she has faced over the years is that she does not come across as aggressive enough or assertive enough, or maybe somehow she seems empathetic, and that it means that she is a weak person. But she totally, stands against this perception of her personality, and refuses to believe that one cannot be both compassionate and strong. And we see that if this is the behavior, if this is the pose that she has adopted, and still managed to manage the whole country and get it out of a global crisis, maybe there's a reason to look closer into this style of negotiation as well. And I thank you again for your attention and interest in joining this conversation here. I'm looking forward to your questions as well, of course.
Thank you so much, Ulkar. Thank you so much for this interesting talk and nice presentation. We will now open the floor for questions. You can type them into the chat or raise your hand and address the speaker directly. While you're preparing your questions, I want to encourage you to switch to the gallery view if you want to see everyone's reactions. This would make this entire Q&A more interactive experience for you.
So do I stop sharing or how do I go? Yes.
You can leave the sharing on. I think people can change the gallery view by themselves, either in the browser or in the app. Yes. Do we have any questions? Let me have a look in the chat. Or anyone from the listeners has any questions? Oh, Jonas. Yes, please go ahead. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yes, it works. Can you hear me? Hello.
Hi, yes, I can.
Hi, Ulkar. Thank you very much. I've definitely learned again something new tonight, and I think you bring some very good insights. I hope you don't mind if I go a little bit more into detail because I'm just interested. So you refer to the negotiator's dilemma as maximizing deal value versus preserving the relationship. So I was wondering if you could define these relationship outcomes in measurable terms, especially in this electronic context.
So I can bring an example from our study with Dr. Grice-Meyer in this topic. We look into socio-emotional outcomes. You list I think inquire here. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So how do we measure socio-emotional outcomes? So there are existing measures, existing questionnaires that one can use to inquire from the participants, because in at least in the field that I'm in, it's hard to sort of witness a real life negotiation and maybe record and analyze the outcomes, because most of them are confidential, in fact. So we conduct our own experiments with the students, with the participants. And usually at the end of these negotiations, we present them questionnaires where they assess their counterpart and the whole process, the experience that they just been in, for the satisfaction, different measures of satisfaction, and the willingness to do more business with them in future, for all these various aspects, socio-emotional aspects, as I say. So this is how we usually measure them.
All right.
I don't know if that was the answer you're looking for.
Thank you. Yes. Enough for now, anyway, without taking you now for the next hour, I suppose, of going into it. Thank you. I think there's another
Pleasure.
Yes, people, you should be now able to unmute yourself. If anyone has any follow-up questions.
So I see on the chat there's a question from Piyush.
From Piyush. Okay, thank you, Piyush, for your question. I will just read it out. So Piyush is asking, in negotiations, in terms of economic/monetary point of view, how should be ideal negotiation? Hardline bargaining or softline bargaining?
In terms of economic point of view, it almost unanimously is the hardline negotiations. If that's your only concern, and this is again, as I said, it has to be done with caution. If you're not expecting to deal with this person ever again, and this is like an ad hoc negotiation that you're conducting, and all you're looking for is this one-time maybe price negotiation, then hardline bargaining is near to certain way to go with.
Does that already answer your question, or do you have any follow-up questions? Piyush texts, thanks. Great, wonderful. Any more questions from the listeners? Jakob, please go ahead.
Hello, Ulkar. Thanks for the
Hello.
talk. That was very interesting. Do you think there's also an advantage to online negotiations or negotiations where you cannot be physically present, so that the absence of maybe non-verbal cues can also help in the negotiations?
The absence of nonverbal cues, usually we talk about them in the light of a disadvantage, that they present disadvantage to negotiations, because negotiation being an act of communication, you want to have as many channels for communication as possible, right? And cutting those vital, let's say, channels of communication can actually be deteriorating to outcomes. And we try to make up for it with more rich, context-rich communication, possibly more explicit statement of our intentions and motivations behind our actions. So usually at least what I've seen is it being talked about in a negative light. I don't know if that's what was your question, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Piyush, for your feedback. Piyush mentions really nice and knowledgeable sessions. Any other questions, though? Jonas, okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the lecture. It was really nice.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, in that case, a question that I think has to be asked, if I can be the one then to do it. If you had to choose one behavioral indicator that best predicts success in an negotiation, what would that be?
I think it's very hard to come up with one indicator, because the reason why you're negotiating will dictate that indicator. Your priorities that you come up with will dictate that indicator. So it is very case subjective, I want to say. It's very hard for me to answer that question unanimously.
Okay. No, in the very beginning, you said, for example, this willingness to do it, the energy that one brings behind it, that typically is quite a good indicator. So perhaps would you say that might be the single behavioral indicator that would best predict at least the fact that the negotiation will be done and not, come to a halt, perhaps, this willingness?
Obviously, the both sides, maybe it's even it's better if both sides come with this can-do attitude around the table, that we do want to reach an agreement, which the fact that they come together around negotiation table should be the message that we want to reach an agreement, because otherwise they just wouldn't even talk, right? But maybe it's really hard to say for me.
Okay.
It's really hard to say for me to answer that question right
No
now.
worries. Yeah, I had to ask that question. I think it was on everybody's, let's say, mind. But thank you anyway for trying. What I take away is what you said in the beginning. This willingness, if there is a certain enthusiasm and energy behind it, I think that is a good behavioral indicator.
Yes,
That
probably starting with the integrative, integrative behavior or spirit, this willingness again to reach a deal should be at least a basic requirement, maybe. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the question, Jonas. That definitely was very engaging. Also, a little bit suggestive, right? That there is like one crucial element into it, but I like the question. Maybe I have one final question because we're also doing a lot of training, right? Like in negotiation training and in-person workshops where people come and get the script for their roles and then negotiate face to face. And since you have been addressing the fact that more and more negotiations happen in some form or there's some virtual component to it, just really now a brainstorming question, like more like free open question. Do you have any recommendations to augment negotiation training to also facilitate that kind of awareness of the negotiation process in the virtual world or in the virtual side?
Definitely. So I think usually maybe we talk about how to construct offers, what to, how to order or yes, build our offers, how to concede and what amounts to concede, how often to concede. But we often don't see or maybe overlook how we are framing those offers, how we are communicating those offers. And at the beginning, this like the whole communication part of this negotiation training, I think there's vast amount of research coming our way that study the text exchanges between the negotiators in online environments, and I think that research should definitely there's definitely a place for that research to be integrated in negotiation training. The richness of the communication, even this linguistic order that we talk about, the structure of the sentences that we use, they might not seem as important because in face-to-face negotiations, because maybe a suggestive smile or let's say certain mannerisms do the job for you, but in online environment where you're lacking this little cues, there is a huge value to be as explicit, as concrete as possible to convey the right message that you want to convey.
Thank you, Ulka. That's actually very interesting because we have already last year addressed this by introducing an email negotiation. So instead of coming to class for one session, people were put into different roles but had to negotiate via email only. So now, after your talk, I see there is so much more to it. So I might even follow up with you afterwards. Maybe we can even extend that for some more interesting negotiation exercise afterwards. But all right, with this, I'd say we
There's one
come.
question on the chat.
There's one more question on the chat. Oh, yes, from Dragos. I will read it. So thank you for your talk. Value-based strategies would definitely help if both/all parties understand the value concept. But how would you advise to conduct a negotiation where one party does not understand the added benefit of working together and only focuses on their own interests? Thank you.
There's a really nice video of this door-to-door campaigners in US who are trying to talk to people that differ largely in their beliefs in their beliefs to campaigners. I think this was about talking to either people who are believed to have racist beliefs or have negative ideas, thoughts about police. And That's my, I would say right now, the only thing that at the top of my head comes to mind as an example for this discussion, maybe, that asking questions, so their sort of tactic is usually by asking questions, going to the root of the belief, and understand where that belief is coming from. Why do they choose that belief system? What are they trying to cope with by holding on to that belief system? And then try and connect with them. It comes down to usually very sort of basic human safety issues, and then maybe continue the communication from that point of view. This was very broad, but this is sort of the only thing that comes from that's on top of my head as related to this discussion.
Thank you, Ulka. Thank you, Dragos. Good. Then with this, I would close today's session. We have come to an end, and I would also like to again thank you, Ulka, heartfelt thank you from our side for taking the time to share your insights into parts of your research activities and share insights how we can communicate and negotiate more effectively in general as well as in the online world. And you really addressed some crucial components for negotiation success, I think, and gave us some valuable points to take with us and consider in our next negotiations. So a big thank you also to everyone who joined us tonight and for all of your thoughtful questions and your engagement. Lastly, I would like to invite you to stay connected and check out our social media channels and our website for upcoming events and more information. Until then, keep learning, stay curious, have a good evening, and keep negotiating. Bye-bye.